At this time, I'm going to pass this program over to Lori Benton, Vice President and Publisher for Scholastic, and a longtime friend and collaborator of Alan, as well as Ken Geist, the Vice President Publisher at Large at Scholastic. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. And please, you can purchase the book at the JANM store. We really encourage you to get your own copy to share and to read. And I'm going to pass it along to you. And please also, if you have questions throughout this conversation, we will get to those later on. So please put those in the Q&A feature. Thank you so much. And over to you, Lori.
Thank you, Joy. And hello, everyone at JANM. It's great to be back. It's kind of a tradition to launch Alan Say's books at JANM, which is what we've done in the past, but this time we're virtual. It's a little fitting that we're on Earth Day, especially for a book like this. But it also is publication week. Alan's book, Miss Irwin, just came out this Tuesday. But I'm most of all happy to see my friend, Alan. Hello. It's been a long 3 years of COVID, and we've talked, we email, but I haven't actually seen you in 3 years.
You look younger.
I'm thinking you do too.
No, I do not. Cut.
But they are, it is incredible to see you, and it's incredible to see this book. Did you know that this is your 33rd book?
No, I didn't.
It
Makes
is.
me very tired. 33. To be 33 again.
Those are probably stories for another time.
Yes.
But I would like to hear them. It really is incredible to see you, but congratulations on this book, which is in many ways very much an Alan Say book in so many ways. And at the same time, a bit of a departure for you on a number of fronts. Talk to me a little bit and tell me about the inspiration for the book. And I have many more questions for you, but let's start with that.
Well, I've been thinking about this book for a very long time. Miss Irwin was my daughter's kindergarten teacher, and I wanted to do a book about her. She was one of those ethereal, pure beings, kind of fairy-like, totally devoted to children. And she was so excitable. If you look at the title page, there's an Easter bunny, which Yuriko, my daughter, made in Miss Irwin's class when she was 5 years old. And if you look closely, the bunny is holding, there's a basket on the bunny's arm. And it is a separate piece from the rest of the art. Yuriko cut that out. It slides up and down the bunny's arm. No one taught her that. And this is Miss Irwin saw that, and she got so excited, she brought it to my apartment to show me what Yuriko did. And it wasn't the only time that she did this. So I wanted to do a book about her, but I only knew for her perhaps 2 or 3 years. And after Yuriko got out of her class, she left for Boston to get married. And that was the last anyone ever heard of her. And I asked Yuriko's classmates from kindergarten recently, and I asked my daughter to find out what her name was. Nobody knows her first name even, Miss Irwin. So I thought about her, doing a story about her for years, and nothing came together. Then I thought it's actually 3 stories coming together in Miss Irwin, this particular book. The other one was that I was obsessed. I wanted to do a book about an autistic boy whom I knew. And after spending a lot of time working on it for quite a number of years, actually, I decided it was just way over my head. And then this area where I live is full of hummingbirds. And I saw I was lucky enough to see a hummingbird nest, which was still occupied. Anyhow, 2-3 years ago, I'm walking around and I saw an empty nest, and somehow a line by George Moore, the writer George Moore, as quoted by Eric Maughan, the poet that I admire very much, floated through my head. And it says, a mature artist takes the material closest to him. And I said, wow. And suddenly something happened. 3 stories came together in my head. And I sat down, wrote a rough outline of the story, and I sent it to you first, Lori. That's how it started.
You did. You did.
And I was in, Mickey and I were in Los Angeles for the launching of Almond. And we were there and returned on the week that COVID broke out. It became a full-fledged pandemic. And I came home and suddenly I found myself sequestered in my house. I couldn't go anyplace. And I went up to my workroom and there were this beautiful tubes of oil paint that I hadn't touched since 2007, the last time I made oil paintings. And I went down to the cellar, started cutting up some cardboards from saved cartons, and I started painting on them with oil paint. And I said, this is going to be my COVID art.
So that's what made you decide to paint on the cardboard?
Yes. Well, I was actually reverting to my high school days. And as it turns out, 3 of my greatest heroes at painting, Bonnard, Lautrec, and Villard, all painted on cardboards. But I didn't know that when I was in high school. I painted on cardboards because I couldn't afford canvases. It was purely economic. So I went back to my high school days, and quite frankly, I don't like the texture of canvas. And it's wonderful to paint on cardboards, which is already has a color to it. It's not pure white, and oil sinks into the paper, and it's not shiny, and it dries quickly. And it's much faster than doing watercolors for me. So this is my new mode. Okay. This is how it happened.
Have you, which all made me think, have you done a picture book in oils before?
No, never.
I thought I couldn't, and also no ink in this.
No ink, and no underdrawing either.
That sounded stern.
So few sketches for this book, the fewest ever. I do hundreds of drawings for any book that I do usually. And this one, I went to present a couple sketches for Ken's children. And I started looking for them, and I can't really find anything presentable. There are so few drawings. So, but it's kind of difficult to explain. It's best not to do any other drawings. It's like Jules Pfeiffer throwing out his pencil, which was easy for him, it didn't make any difference. But anyhow, okay, I'm getting off the subject here. This is my new mode of painting. Just start painting on cardboards with loaded brushes.
You, when you sent me this first draft of Miss Irwin, you actually sent it along with the quote from George Moore.
Yes.
Just FYI.
You ever read it?
I happen, yes, because of you. I owe much of my reading to you. You also said in that same email, now that I've discovered a kind of shorthand for drawing, I can produce much more excitement much more quickly.
Well, did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Produce excitement. I like to produce excitement. It's always there. Anyhow.
Well, and you also have had throughout your career, which was a bit is a bit unusual for someone who has had as long and as storied a career as you have had. You've only had a handful of editors. And on this book, you worked with Ken Geist, my colleague and friend, who is here for the first time.
Yes.
So, Ken, what was it like to work with Alan? Say.
Well, I first have to say, Alan, thank you for the reading. You know, we worked together on the words, we worked together on the paint, you know, I saw the paintings, and then hearing you read the story was just so beautiful. And, you know, and I think the beauty of memory just comes out how beautiful the book really turned out. And just congratulations. It's so beautiful.
I think you did it harder than I did, really. You've spent so much time. I thank you deeply, really.
No, it's all you. It's all you, Mr. You know, and when Lori first told me, you know, that I was going to get to work with you, Alan, I was so terribly intimidated. I mean, it's not every day that somebody says that you're going to work with this amazing genius. So, you know, when I read the
Who said that?
I read the outline. I saw the initial paintings, you know, and basically my love affair began, you know, and, you know, after a few conversations and a few emails and my guard sort of came down a little bit, I think that we have this wonderful relationship together that continues. And I'm just, you know, like I started falling madly in love with Miss Irwin. And, you know, I have tears in my eyes right now just thinking about it, you know, and that you introduced me to the importance of memory, of remembering, you know, and just hearing you read the story helped me remember what it was like working with you. And it was just a pure joy. Thank you again.
Thank you. It's been wonderful working with you. I really mean that. And next.
Well, Ken brought up the idea of memory, which is very much a theme in this book, and it is such an interesting approach to it that differs a bit from your other books in that it's very contained. And I think that memory is such a important thing to you personally as an artist and to your work overall. I'm going to quote yourself to you here. You once said that memory is the most important asset that an artist has. Imagination is a function of memory. Without memory, you can't have imagination. Your idea of imagination is rearranging your memories.
Yes, and I still mean that, every word of it. And to think someone, myself, or anyone losing that, like Miss Irwin, Alzheimer's, it's just devastating. So I'm an old man in a hurry, trying to put it down before all this fun.
Well, which I think is one of the things that makes this book all the more poignant is watching the interplay between Miss Irwin and young Willie as he meets her at her level and engages with her, and they share this beautiful memory together. And I know that was a process as you worked to create it, you and Ken. And you also said at one point that it was an unintended one-act play.
Yes, yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little more from you about the process of that and how the two of you work together to hone that down into such a compact story.
Well, that's a very tall order. It's like trying to explain the creative process. But one of the things that I wanted to explore was the role playing on the part of the child, which I tried to explore in Almond, and which is based on the true story of a child, a young woman now, who was a quite well-known child actress. And I became very much interested in the role playing. And the true role playing is a role in which a child plays a part. All children do this. And then they become that person that they're playing. This is where Willie says, I'm glad I gave it to, he becomes Willie. And this was the main interest. But Ken made the greatest contribution at the end of the book, and I want to go public with this. It was my idea. The grandmother snapping back into herself and calling him Andy, because I would have nixed it from I loathe corniness. But coming from an editor, it was okay. It was imprimatur, okay, against it was a great idea, which I would not have come up with. It's sort of like the teardrop on Miss Irwin on the painting. If you notice that was an accident. Perhaps a preordained accident. I was trying to put a highlight on her eyeball, and somehow my aging hand missed the mark, and the little white highlight landed where it's on the picture and looks like a tear, a drop of tear. And I said, wow, I'll just leave it like that. But I would not have done it intentionally. It's the same thing.
I think too, we kept on talking about the dialogue between the two all the time. And I think they developed as we kept on talking, we both became so much more familiar. I mean, we entered Miss Irwin's world, and then we started talking back and forth about how she would answer and how he would respond. Right. And it was up to the very end, we were still talking about it until it went to print. We were still talking about it, which was just so wonderful.
I said to somebody recently, probably Nikki, that you're the editor who internalizes the story at hand more than anyone I've worked with. Thank you.
Well, really, it's opening up your mind to just remembrance, and it was just great. I mean, listen, it's been a joy. So that's all I have to say. Well, but Alan, I was wondering, could you possibly read your author's note? Because I also think that really helps explain a lot about Miss Irwin and the story. And I think it's really important for everyone to just hear.
Should I do it now?
Yes, please.
I have to put my. The teachers I loved and admired are figures of light in my memory. Miss Irwin is especially luminous. She was my daughter's kindergarten teacher. The children's words and drawings and dancing made her blush with excitement. And by trying to keep her blushing, the children learned the astonishment of discovery. I hope she will forgive me for casting her as a forgetful grandmother in the story. It's an attempt to capture her life before all is forgotten.
Yeah, so beautiful. You know, and I think that's where young readers are really going to be able to grasp the story and relate to every day of talking about what's going on in everyone's lives and not to forget about it. And I know it's opened up a lot of conversations with my children.
Well, memory is the only thing we have. Well, they say the only thing we have are stories. Stories are memories.
Stories are absolutely memories, and stories are also how everyone makes sense of the world,
Indeed.
especially kids. So it's so
Emphasizing, yes, which grown-ups take to excess, and they get all confused and start talking nonsense. Anyhow, I will not stop.
well. Let's talk about teachers for a minute, because Miss Irwin was a teacher and inspired by a real life teacher, and teachers are somewhat frequently in your books, sometimes as real people and sometimes as imagined. Miss Irwin is real. You've had others, such as your greatest teacher, Nora Shampai, and Mrs. Marita turned up in others, and Mrs. Swopes was another that was very key for you. Are there elements of those teachers that you imbued into Mrs. Irwin, Miss Irwin?
Absolutely. It's a, I always tell youngsters that they're lucky if they have one great teacher in their lives. I had two. And my daughter begins with her life with the best teacher. I mean, where do you go from there? She's had a lot of bad teachers, by the way. Yes. And
So what were some of the elements from those teachers that you had that you gave to Miss Irwin?
I wanted to, for a very long time, I wanted to do a book about the importance of a teacher in one's life. If you're lucky enough to have a good teacher, great teacher. And they're the ones who I think influence us the most. Of course, your parents, they're your parents. The best thing that can happen to you is to have good parents. The worst thing that can happen to you, that can happen to you is to have bad parents. And the second worst thing that can happen is for you to turn around and become a bad parent. Teachers and parents. And that was my theme, the teacher. I wanted to. So I talked about my sensei, Mrs. Morita, a lot, but this is how Miss Irwin came about. What I thought about her for almost 40 years when I wanted to do a book about her.
Are there any parts of the Andy character that came from your life?
Well, he's probably a combination of many children. Andy, by the way, is the namesake of one of my friends here, a volcanologist. And I'm so fond of him that I wanted to use his name. So that was a private joke.
Does he know?
Oh, yes, I told him. How many volcanologists do you get to know in this life? It's just,
I know. Yeah. Not many. I only know one. So
thinking about, he doesn't know this, but I've been thinking about doing a book about a volcanologist. I probably won't, but
well,
okay.
all right. Well, I love the idea that Miss Irwin sort of disappeared to Boston. I'm having an image in my mind of her seeing herself in the bookstore sometime next week and recognizing herself.
Right. Yeah.
That would be-
I would dearly love to. It's really funny. One of the reasons that I didn't start on this book for so long, or pretty much gave up on, was that I couldn't find a picture. I always use photographs, especially a real person that I'm trying to paint. And I didn't have any pictures of her. And this is a strange story, by the way. And I called the school, San Francisco Day School. And of course, no one knew. There wasn't any record of. The school moved from one location to another right after my daughter got out of her kindergarten class. And when that happened, this was before the computer age, and there wasn't a record for her. And about 3 years ago, serendipitously, I was looking for an old negative image of my daughter in my negative files. I have thousands of negatives. I was a photographer, black and white negatives. And lo and behold, I came across 2 pictures that I had taken at a kindergarten parents' picnic. And there she was. I had 2 frames. It was as though I had taken those shots when Yerba was, 38 years ago, for the purpose of using it eventually in the future to do a book. It was uncanny. I showed it to you. And Ken said, she looks like Princess Diana. And she does. I would love it if I hear from her, Miss Irwin. She's not out. She couldn't be that old now. I'm sure I was 20 years. I have 20 years on her. So that'll make her 65. That's pretty young.
Well, like I said, I'm imagining her walking into a bookstore sometime in the next week and seeing this and reaching out.
I would love it. I would just love it. I have been waiting. I waited for a very long time when I went on these public book tours and signings and whatnot, for a gray-haired, tall Afro-American old man to come up to me and say, Alan, I'm your bicycle man. I actually, really honestly, I waited for decades for this to happen. And I thought I came close once. But that's another story. It's a very long story.
Oh, goodness. I think one of the other things about your work that is a through line in many of your books, and certainly in this one, is your sense of the natural world and your kind of fascination with it always comes through in the books. And this one, I think, more than most.
Fascination with the real world. What do you
The
mean?
natural world, the natural.
Oh, natural world, yes. When you have a child in trouble, you take the child out into nature. And this is the main premise essay on the Lost Lake, which no one really caught. But children intuit this because they told me. They've written letters saying as much. But it's the grown-ups who miss it completely.
So explain a little bit more about that. What do they respond to in the natural world that is so grounding for them?
I received a packet of fan letters. It was uncanny. Since I'm talking about 20 years ago, and letters came from some town in Ohio, a factory town, where the book was read by the teacher, and to children who have never gone camping, was never introduced to nature, mountains, lakes, and that sort of thing. And they loved that book and wrote me a bunch of letters saying how they longed to go camping, and their teacher had assured them that there are actually places like those that I depict in that story. Then a couple of weeks later, I received a packet of fan letters from children in Colombia, obviously an international settlement there, rich kids who go camping all the time, fancy camping with all the equipment. And they wrote to me saying how much they enjoyed camping, and my book reminded them of their pleasure. Now, can you imagine receiving these two completely different sorts of fan letters within a month, with 2 weeks apart? So anyhow.
So it's the way that nature resonates not only with you, but then also with kids, because you bring that forth in your books.
Those who have never seen it, and those who are quite feel natural in it.
Yeah.
So I found that very interesting.
We actually, there's a question here from one of the guests that's asked about kids and specifically, and says, are there any children or young people in your life who you involve in your creative process? Before, whether talking through the books with them, asking their opinion, or who provide inspiration.
I'm sorry, it's maybe I'm hard of hearing, but
are there any children currently or young people in your life now that you involve in your creative process, or who provide inspiration?
No. I'm as you know, a big time recluse. I hardly leave the house. I don't socialize. I don't meet people.
But
so entirely in my past, reconstructing my past.
Your memory.
Right, exactly.
Rearranging your memories.
Right.
And also, but do you, You have a very close relationship with your daughter, Yuriko. And is she among your first readers?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But I'm very
Um,
aware of the bias, the filial duty that she has to observe, and so I don't pay much attention to her enthusiasm. If it's natural, I accept that, but I do show my work to her first. Well, Mickey, and
does she give you feedback?
oh yes, yes, she does. But I'll keep those private. You know what a private person I am.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Don't worry.
Hi, Alan, I'm going to pop in here and I'm going to ask you that maybe you could sort of talk about the importance of the white box, because for me, it's so important at the beginning of the story. If you could just elaborate a little bit more about the white box.
Well, you're the one who brought this out. I had just simply put it in. Everything I do is done intuitively, really. I don't really understand them. It's sort of like dream interpretation. I dream first, and sometimes I can decipher some of the implications. But you came to my studio the first time, and you saw the painting, and you mentioned that you noticed that white box. And after you left that afternoon, I painted this that afternoon. This is the last picture of the. You gave me the impression, well, this is what a great editor is supposed to do, and you did.
No.
Here's the painting.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that
I'm Mickey. She's never reacted to any of the other paintings, by the way. This was on the easel the same afternoon, and she just became very much alive. Wow, what happened? This is what she said, meaning, what happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's the story. This is how the memory starts. Is this white box that he finds, and opens it up, and then the journey begins. It's, yeah, it's great.
There are a lot of things that I can't explain. The box was one of them, and I just. What is it? What's that word? Mnemonics? This is what you
Right.
Yes, thank you. All right, what else should we talk about? Lori is not moving.
Uh-oh, I think she's frozen.
What happened? Have we come to the end of the program?
I think we're at the question and answer period.
Uh-oh.
Oh my. I think she's gone.
Oh.
It's just you and me. I guess we can tell some of our secrets now.
Okay.
Maybe Ken could ask this one. Alan, can you talk about your creative process? Do you first write the text and then draft the illustrations, or is that a question?
Oh no, I always paint first. I draw, paint. Sometimes I start out with a very rough idea. I almost never write a story. It's happened a couple of times. Grandfather's Journey was one of them, and I can't remember another one. I usually paint first. All the ideas come to me visually most of the time. It's like akin to a dreaming process, I suppose.
Here's a question from someone. Alan, as this book is made of oil paintings and not ink drawings and sketches, did you make many other paintings you potentially for the book that you did not use?
That used to happen all the time, but it's less and less now. Usually I discard up, well, with oil, you just simply paint over, which is a great advantage of using watercolor. But I don't do a lot of discards anymore. I'm in a hurry.
Right, because the first oil paintings on cardboard that I saw, then you sort of painted on top of them and refined them as we sort of went along, right?
Yes. It's you can do very interesting things on cardboards. You can make painting look like very much like pastel painting. In fact, you can make it even more pastel-y than pastel itself. But I don't like pastels. They're just too messy. And they're highly unstable.
I have Lori. Oh, Lori is saying she got kicked off. She just sent me a message.
Lori got kicked off?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. So I was wondering, what are you currently working on now?
What am I working on now?
Mm-hmm.
I am working on a book about, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about this, but
Okay.
There's another book coming out in the fall about a sparrow story. It's already listed online. It's a story about a baby sparrow that I acquired when I was 8 years old with all my treasures. 3 bully boys had found it, baby sparrow that had fallen from its nest, and I raised it. And it's a story that it has actually the longest gestation period of any of my stories. I thought about it since I was 8 years old, and it has had so many false starts and many different versions, and it's finally coming out this fall.
I'm trying to get to some more questions. Not see them. Hold on one second. Here we go. Alan, out of your 33 books, do you have a personal favorite? And if so, why?
The personal favorite is always the one that I'm working on now. I'm fond of Kamishibai Man. I think that was a successful book. And Silent Days, Silent Dreams was the most difficult. It's
Such a beautiful book. I love rereading that book. It's just great. It's amazing. So I wonder if you could just tell everyone, it's like from start to finish, how long did it take to actually create Miss Irwin?
The work itself, it actually the paintings, I did them in record time. I think I spent 9 months painting those. From the beginning of COVID, I just went. I hadn't used oil paint in so long that it was pure pleasure. It's just you can do lots of things that you can't do with watercolor. The richness messing with this.
And then, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about what happens when the art is done and the text is done, and then you ship them to, the creative director, and then you start the process of creating the picture book.
Well, I go straight away into the next book usually, but recently I've been trying to juggle 3 books, 2 books completed, and then I'm working on another one. Now, welcome back, Lori. What happened?
My internet went out. We're having a storm here.
In New York? Having a
Yes.
storm? Is
The
it-
edge, we're just on the edge of it. The rain just quit, but it's unhappy.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. What did I miss? Just-
Not very much. In fact, nothing.
So do we have any more questions? No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Alan, thank you. Oh,
Oh, there are a few in there.
hang on, it does say, I'm sorry, I can't see them. Can you handle them to ask them questions? Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Okay. One question here is says, what is your favorite and least favorite parts of the creative process for children's books? Start to finish, from conception all the way through to promoting them.
Promoting is my least.
No. But what is your favorite?
My favorite is the painting part. And sometimes the wonderful line will flow through my line, which I wasn't aware that I could think up such a line. It does happen on occasion. Rare. It's exciting.
I think you said that at one point about the editing process and turning in your dummy, and you're saying, oh, and I'm turning this in now. You can start arguing whenever you want. But you followed that immediately up with, this is where the excitement happens.
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I didn't. Excitement doesn't have to be good, you know.
Oh, and there's one here, I think this is for me. It says, what do you think traditional publishers should and can do to increase diversity of voices in children's books? Who are the creators? What stories are being told and published? And for me, I think that is very much something that's top of mind for all children's book publishers. I think it's something that we have gotten better at and more mindful of in recent years, but I think we always have been. I'm speaking as someone who has been in the business for 40 years, starting as a bookseller, and then as someone in marketing, and now on the publishing side. You see so much more diverse creators and diverse stories, and a real commitment to making sure that those are told and shared. As we said earlier, stories are very much how people and kids in particular make sense of the world. So it's important that they all see themselves. I think, Alan, do you have anything you want to add to that, or Ken?
Well, not really. It's just I suppose I am in a way some kind of a pioneer, in the sense when I first began doing my stories, my friends, Daniel Sansusi, Dan,
Mm-hmm.
and Dennis Gazette, and three of us used to go out to lunch once a month or so, and we'd talk about this and that. And I was a latecomer. They had been already established in what they were doing. I was a photographer. And Dan in particular felt very sorry for me to be doing the kind of work that I was doing, because he didn't think that they would sell. They were too ethnic. And then I did Three of Cranes. And somebody actually said in the publishing marketing department, somebody in it said, had I depicted the boy as a blonde white boy, it would have been a smash hit. I was told this. And here I am, doing fairly well, doing children's books, which everybody thought would never sell. And so there you are. That's my answer.
We have a question here from a friend of yours, asking for a friend. Tara McGowan is in the audience, and she says is very excited that you have dedicated this book to Margaret Eisenstadt. And she said, could you talk a little about your reasons for dedicating this book to Margaret? Margaret
was one of my closest friends, and I got to know her when I started working on Kamishibai Man. And I didn't know that Kamishibai was known in this country. I hesitated doing that book for years because I felt that I would have had to do too much explaining as to what Kamishibai was. Anyhow, I met Margaret, and she died on the 7th of January last year. And when the word came, I immediately called my daughter Yuriko and I said, look, do you mind if I put Margaret's name along with yours as a dedicatee for this book? And of course, Yuriko had gone to Japan with Margaret to come see my performance once. That's another story altogether. Anyhow, she was very much like Miss Irwin, one of those ethereal, pure spirits. And I didn't say in memory of, she is very much alive to me. So that's who she is. She's the founder of Kamishibai for kids. When I did that book, Kamishibai, by the way, Kamishibai Man, Walter Lorraine was my editor. And he asked me if I would change the title. My English title was The Paper Theater Man. And I said, no way. And I told him that Americans didn't have any problem with Kalishnikov, did they? They're going to learn Kamishibai, and they did. And they did. Margaret was a very close friend. Is still. She's a lovely woman. You met her. I did. I did. I had that pleasure. And Tara says, thank you for answering that. Okay. I think those are, I don't see any more questions. Good.
Oh, wait. Oh, are there any up and coming creators, authors, or illustrators that inspire you or that you look forward to seeing more of their work?
I mean, sorry, I never look at children's books. I want inspiration. I look at Lautrec or Bernard.
Bernard. Your own personal gang of three.
Right.
Okay. Well, Alan, it's been amazing. It's been so great to see you. And Ken, always great to see you. You're across the country, so I don't see you as often as I'd like now.
We're gonna have that lunch, Ken.
We definitely are.
So
Again, the reading was just stupendous. I hope we have it on tape.
it doesn't seem fair to me that I do the painting and write the words, then I have to read the thing on Zoom. But thank you, I got through, and now
It's fair.
You did an amazing job. And I do think I want to thank everyone for attending this afternoon. And I also want to thank our friends at JANM for hosting this as they do for every one of your launches. And I know you in particular, Alan, have such a special relationship with the museum. It is an incredible. I was thinking back. Well, I think the first time I personally was at the museum was for your retrospective in 2000, when they mounted a full exhibit of your work, which was just astonishing to see all together and so beautifully hung. And I think, was that your first exhibition at the museum?
yes. Maria was responsible for that.
Yes, I know. Maria's responsible for many things,
Yes.
but that was that, and thus began a great relationship. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're friends. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon.